Hello everyone. Today we shall read your stories related to the premonition of death. Several stories will concern the other topics, but they will be also very interesting.
Here's my story. When I was pregnant, my grandmother died. After some time, I had a dream that she was lying in a coffin. And next to her was my child in orange diapers. My mother tells her, "Why did you take him? You can't swaddle him or feed him. You don't need him." She answered, "I need him." A week later I gave birth and my son died on the second day. In the morning in the ward when they brought the children to feed, I did not sleep, lay with my eyes closed and heard the voice of the late grandfather. "Thank you, granddaughter, now we will have more fun. They feel good there, I have no doubt."
Before my mother died, she was constantly talking to someone, sometimes even swearing and screaming. When I entered the room and asked her about this, she said, "Well, don't you see anyone?" She told me who was standing and where, who was sitting and where, who was teasing her. She said that a girl constantly followed me. Of course I didn't see anyone, but the feelings were unpleasant. At night, her dead sisters, whom she had never seen during her lifetime, came to her. She woke me up and introduced me to them. She was very nervous that I didn't see them. Sometimes I had to play along. A month later, my mother passed away. I realized that they had come to pick her up. After her death, several times at night I saw an incomprehensible substance in front of me in the form of a shining ball. I closed my eyes out of fear. I was afraid to tell anyone about it. But thank you for finding this channel where I can calmly speak out.
When my dad died, I dreamed of a man who said to me, "Zarima, I met your father." He said it so joyfully. And he told me that his name was Ali. I told my mom about the dream, and she said that I couldn't even remember him, because he died when I was a baby. And then she took out photos of my dad with his friends and asked which one? And I immediately pointed to the man in the hat. My mom was very surprised. But such incidents and dreams have always happened to me. And everything came true. So, knowing that there is another world, you need to try to lead the right way of life. To be kinder. I also dreamed about my cousin's sister, who died, and she asked me to tell her mother not to cry for her. That she felt good there. That she was in a circle of girls with whom she was dancing. And she said that the most sinful thing is not to pray, to slander and... I don't remember the third. It's a pity. She said that there is eternity. But here, pointing to the ground, nothing. May the Almighty give us all strong faith and walk our path with dignity.
I would really like to share the stories that happened to my husband. To my great regret, he has been gone for 11 years already. I somehow accidentally went to this channel, read the comments, and it was as if someone was constantly saying, "You should also write your stories, maybe this will help someone." First story. My husband had an accident, the car was just crashed, and he had practically no serious injuries. I lived with him for 20 years. And every time reminding this accident. He was surprised that he did not die. My husband had a heart problem. And then one night, he said to me, "I'll leave you soon." I was in a panic and asked, "Have you met another woman?" "You're a fool," he said. "I'll die soon." Can you imagine my condition? I burst into tears with the words, "What about me? What will happen to me?" We didn't have our own home at that time. We were renting an apartment. He was silent for 2 to 3 minutes, then he said, "Don't cry, I'll live a little longer." He lived exactly 10 years after that, but this was only a preface. The last year of his life, my husband only said that he would die soon. Gave me advice on how to live when he's gone. But you understand. I just brushed him off. But one night I woke up and immediately realized that he was talking to someone. Not loudly, but very clearly. I no longer recognized who he was talking to, but it seemed to me that he was flipping through the pages of his life. The conversation consisted of questions and answers. At the end of the conversation my husband said, I'm leaving with a calm soul. There were 2 women in my life. I didn't offend them. I found a good place in life for one. And I'm leaving the apartment for another. Yes, he also added. I understand now why I didn't die in that accident. I had to take care of her so that she wouldn't stay on the street. The next day he died.
My late husband, 2 days before drowning in the lake, said that he had a dream how he killed himself with a knife in the heart, stabbing him twice. And he warned me that I would soon be alone. I just laughed. He was 24 years old, full of strength and dreams. And 2 days later the terrible news came. He drowned while fishing. It was his own fault. He put on long waders, and when the boat capsized, he could not take them off. I was pregnant at that time. It was the 3rd month. He really wanted a daughter. Now his daughter is a copy of him in appearance and character. She is 25 years old, married and happy. She never saw her father, but he probably protected her from that world. We loved each other very much, and lived 3 happy years. I always remember him. The time doesn't heal, it's not true.
There are probably doppelgangers. I also met a doppelganger of my deceased aunt, whom I loved very much. Only my aunt died old. At 84 years old. And that woman, who was walking down the street towards me, looked like my aunt at 60 years old. Absolutely the same facial features. Hairstyle. Hair dyed with the same paint. The same lipstick. And the coat was similar to the one she wore at that age. Beige with shiny buttons. I was simply shocked. I probably looked at her so intently that she even paused for a couple of seconds. I looked back as she passed, and she looked back too. Mysticism. This was about 5 years ago. But that's how it stuck in my memory. At one time I even went there specifically, in the hope of meeting her again. But I didn't meet her again.
There was an interesting comment. This was your aunt. They all look younger there even if they left at an old age. I have been a dream traveling for 35 years now. This means she liked this image the most and she remained in it. They sometimes come. But we don't see them. It's a great miracle that you saw. It means you really loved her very much. I see an old woman who once lived in our apartment, which we bought a year ago. Her daughter sold it to us. But sometimes this grandma comes. I feel her presence. Sometimes something falls. So she lets me know that she is here. She always comes on Easter.
I had a nephew who was staying in bed after 2 strokes. Because the rest of his family left to the other world already. I got up to him 2 times at night. In the morning at 7 I went to work. That night I heard him roaring in loud voice. I jumped up and ran to him. He was yelling wildly loud. I woke him and asked why happened. He said. 16. He speaked badly, but I understood him. I asked, who came to you? He said, it was my mom. His mom was my older sister who was already dead. She said. 16. You are going to die on the 16th. Yes. He died 2 months later on the 16th.
My husband's brother died and his wife saw him in the dream. She told that he was wandering somewhere with a crowd. It was dark there. And they didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what they were looking for either. Everyone had their heads down. I thought about it later and realized that they were looking for the light. We had to light up candles for him, give him the light and energy. They heal such souls there. As they just didn't complete their mission. And everything that was not fulfilled in this incarnation would be finished in the next one. Experience is experience. No one was fried in frying pans. Entities can come in the dreams under the guise of relatives. When you see a loved one in a dream who is no longer there, ask them to say their name. This is important. If you want to go to church to light a candle, just go. But you do not need to do this often. Naturally, the soul itself rarely chooses such a departure. But there are many reasons for suicide. Some people consciously go to death to save someone else. Or a soldier blows himself up to avoid being captured. We need to pray for the repose and the soul will rise. Prayer is their advocate and all sins will be forgiven.
In our family, before 1941, a little girl died. She was my father's little sister. She was 6 years old. She would have been my aunt. We remembered her and sometimes talked about her, although we didn't even know what she looked like. About 10 years ago, a little girl began to come to my 12-year-old nephew at night. She would sit on the edge of the bed and he would start to choke. It got to the point that he was afraid to go to bed alone. We thought it over and decided that it was her. No one else died little in our family. Then I decided that she should be remembered in the church and I start to pray for her at home too. She stopped coming and I saw her in a dream. And I learned what she looked like. She is exactly like my younger sister, so small and pretty. And now she is always in my memory. My son died in the war in Ukraine. He was only 21 years old. 9 months passed. And they were never evacuated from there. They are lying in a foreign land. They say that there are battles going on there. The places are mined. They didn't pull it out right away, and now they've even forgotten about it. The recent dead cannot be pulled out, but ours have been forgotten. Why am I writing this? The body was not buried. The soul was not put to rest. So where is the son's soul? I do want to see him, to hear him, even a ghost. But for some reason birds are constantly fighting to their death against my window. Why is this? I think birds are hitting the glass. It's the son's soul knocking. And there was a comment to this story.
I don't know what the birds mean. I'll write to you about myself. My husband recently passed away. Every Sunday I go to church. I submit a note for the repose of his soul. At the liturgy they take a piece out of the prosphora. Everyone prays and I pray with everyone. And the priest releases this piece into communion. This eases the suffering of our loved ones in the other world. And every Saturday at 10 o'clock they serve a memorial service in church. Do this. This is all we can do to help them. And Christ said, everything you bind on earth will be bound in heaven. Jesus our Father, He will never leave you unless you yourself want it. And He will remember your son in the kingdom of heaven. And nothing more is needed.
In September 2020, we were eagerly awaiting our grandson Sven, and there I was sitting and clearly seeing a small mound and a cross with the name Sven without a death date. I pushed the thoughts away, I just didn't believe it. It was difficult birth, asphyxia, they tried to save the child for 8 months. I was already crying out loud and asking God to take the child away so that he would not suffer anymore. We remember him in your prayers. He was baptized in the hospital as Sven. His soul is now with the Lord, our little angel.
Thank you for your channel. I experienced for myself that God exists. I gave birth to my son at 40. The doctor said that I needed to do a cesarean section, since the child was large. But I refused. During contractions, when I no longer had the strength to endure, I began to read the Lord's Prayer. It instantly became easier. There was a feeling that I was on some kind of cloud. All the pain went away, bliss remained. Later the maternity nurse told me that I was smiling. I gave birth with no problems, on my own and without a single tear. Thank you, Lord, for my son, for everything that you do for me and my family.
My mother died 2 days after her heart surgery, and on the day of the surgery she appeared to me in a dream, standing silently in a white nightgown, as if glowing and looking at me, standing against a black background. I wondered what that dream meant as the surgery was a success. It looked as if she was saying goodbye. As if she already knew that she would not return. Then, after some time, I mentally called my mother for a dialogue and she told me that they did not give her a choice, that everything had already been decided there, that they were taking her away. She also said that everything was fine with her and she was with her mother.
When I was little, my grandfather died. My grandmother took me to her house for the night. And when we went to bed, a glowing ball started flying around the room. First on one portrait, then on another. My grandmother said that it was my grandfather who had come to look at us. That's how she knew it. It was a long time ago. No one knew that the soul was a substance. It was in the 50s.
When I gave birth to my eldest daughter in 1985, I managed to fall asleep between contractions. And I heard they told me that I came in a black headscarf. I said that I came in a hat. But they insistently repeated 3 times. And then showed me a photo of a girl about 5 years old. I didn't know then who would be born. And at 5 years old, my daughter really did die.
I believe the dead are not really dead. They just passed on to another world. But they know what is happening to us. The main thing is that they do not stop worrying about us. I have hypertension, and I have a hard time in this condition. But at such moments my brother's wife always calls and asks if everything is okay with me. It turns out that she dreams of my father and he asks them to visit me. At such moments, I scold myself for not appreciating him at the time.
My husband's sister Tina got sick at the young age. Before that, she was a cheerful, mischievous girl. She bought herself 5 or 6 meters of white silk for a ball gown, but she never came to the ball. She gave half of the cut to her sister's daughter. She died after being ill for 7 years. My mother-in-law brought the remaining cut to me so that I could sew a dress for the coffin. My husband's sister lost a lot of weight and I did not sew from it. I went to the studio and ordered a fluffy, voluminous dress for her. And the cut was left lying in the sewing machine cabinet. I forgot about it. And then I dreamed of her and with displeasure she scolded me for allegedly stealing the cut. 2 weeks later. Again, this time more aggressively. She demanded it back. I would immediately give it to my mother-in-law. But you know, we are atheists, believe neither in God nor the devil. After a while, she came again and this time she stretched out her hands to my throat, began to strangle me, demanding that I give the cut back. That's when I got really scared. Remembering the nightmare, during the day I grabbed the piece of material and ran to my mother-in-law. I said, "Take it, otherwise Tina comes to me and demands it back with a scandal." My mother-in-law looked at me with fear and moved her lips. I didn't understand anything. Then she said, "Did she come to you too?" I asked, "Did you dream about her too?" "No," she said. But she came to her niece and demanded her gift back with a scandal. We were shocked. How could this be? She came to 2 people at once, who had this piece of material. They brought the piece to Grandma after the first dream, and I was waiting for something. I didn't know that the half of the material was at my sister-in-law's daughter, they didn't know that half was at me. So collusion is excluded. Only one thing remained, she really did come to us.
I was about 10 years old when I had this dream. I was standing in the yard and holding my leg, looking in bewilderment at it. Why it was in my hands. In the morning I went out into the yard and told my neighbor about this dream. She said that someone would die, but not relatives. A day later she died.
That's all for today. Subscribe to the channel, leave your comment or a story and activate the notification bell not to miss our new videos. Bye bye.